कयो न
अची वियो।
ॾिसण आयो अञा न आयो अञा न आयो
न आयो आहे।
तव्हां पंहिंजो माइक्रोफोन बंदि कयो।
मुंहिंजो माइक्रोफोन बंदि आहे।
हुनजो लैपटॉप जो हेलो
हेलो।
हा हाणे सही आहे। हाणे स्टूडियो में वञी करे मोनिटाइज़ेशन ऑन कयो न।
उहे मोनिटाइज़ेशन स्टूडियो में किथे थो अचे? हिते लाइव अचे थो, शॉर्ट थो अचे।
इन्हीं में न सर, होॾे हुन में
कंहिंमें?
यूट्यूब स्टूडियो में।
यूट्यूब स्टूडियो में तो वियो आहियां। यूट्यूब स्टूडियो में अचे थो वीडियो, लाइव एंड शॉर्ट्स।
हा त लाइव में वञो न।
लाइव तो कई आहे मूं ऑन।
उन में इहो तव्हांजो रिसर्च डिज़ाइन लिखियल हूंदो न।
लाइव में कोन थो अचे यार रिसर्च डिज़ाइन।
100% ईंदो सर, तव्हां वञो था।
पहिरीं आयो रिसर्च डिज़ाइन, हाणे ही कोन आयो आहे अञा ताईं। हाणे छा कयां?
लेक्चर शुरू कयो, ॾिसूं।
लेक्चर तो शुरू कयूं त उहो मोनेटाइज़ न थींदो, फ़ाइदो छा? महिनत ज़ाया वेंदी।
तव्हां लैपटॉप जो माइक्रोफोन बंदि कयो न ज़रा।
हा ही अची वियो रिसर्च डिज़ाइन।
हाणे इन मोनेटाइज़ेशन ऑन कयो, पेन में वञी करे पेन खे क्लिक कयो।
पेन खे क्लिक कयां? पेन इन में अचे कोन थो।
वरी के माइक बंदि कयो न लैपटॉप जी।
लैपटॉप जो माइक Okay, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. In the today lecture, we will go to learn about the research design for the quantitative studies. I am Sher Mohammad Azara, and I am the nursing instructor in the PIMS College of Nursing, Islamabad, and I have done my master's in public health, and also I have done the EpiBio master's in the epidemiology and biostats, and I have done the undergraduates in the BSN from the AKU. Hun. Okay. In the today lecture, the outline of the today lecture is the purpose and dimension of the research design. आज के स्टडी में हम ये पढ़ेंगे कि जो रिसर्च डिज़ाइन की पर्पस और डायमेंशन क्या क्या हैं. एंड द सेकंड वन टाइप्स ऑफ द क्वांटिटेटिव रिसर्च डिज़ाइन. जो क्वांटिटेटिव टाइप्स है रिसर्च डिज़ाइन की, उनके मुख्तलिफ अकसाम जो है ना आज हम पढ़ेंगे. एंड द थर्ड वन is the experimental research design. And what is the experimental research design and what is the non-experimental study design? First of all, before to go in detail, then first of all we should know the definition of the research design. कि research design होता क्या है? Actually, the research design is the blueprint of the research project. It means it gives the overall structural plan of the study design, that how the researcher will go to conduct the study in a systematic way. This is the research design. Okay. And there are the different dimension of the quantitative research design. The first one is the control over, how you will go to control on the independent variables and the dependent variables. If you will go to conduct the any experimental study design or the clinical control trial, which is called the RCT, randomized control trial, which is the interventional design, then definitely you have to control on the independent and the dependent variables. There are two type of the interventional study design. The one is called the true experimental study design, and the true experimental design, the name of the true experimental design is called the randomized control trial. And the second one of the experimental study design is called the non-experimental study design. Okay. And then we will go to compare the groups which is involved in the experimental and non-experimental study design. The one we will go to compare between the group and between the subjects, means we will go to compare between the subjects, means the experimental subjects and then the control subjects. And the second one we will go to compare within the subject as well. Okay. And for this purpose we will go for the ANOVA test. Now the number of the data collection, how we will go to collect the data in the quantitative research design. The first one is the cross-sectional study design. In the cross-sectional study design, which is called the snapshot study design, in which you can collect the information and then you will go to come up with the numerical result, and the result will come up in the proportion, the percentage, or in the frequency. And the second one is the longitudinal study design. And the longitudinal study design, definitely you go to collect the information and follow the study for the certain time period. This is the longitudinal study design. The other name of the study, longitudinal study design, we can call the cohort study design. Now, the other dimension of the quantitative research design, the occurrence of the independent and dependent variable, how the dependent variable and dependent variable will be occur according to the time, place, and person. The it is called in the cohort study design. In the cohort study design, we have the retrospective and prospective. If we will start the study in a 2021, and then we will look up the outcome of that study design, of the cohort within the 4 years. It means in the 2025, that's a called the prospective cohort study design. If we conduct the study uh, for the 5 or 10 years, then we will go 5 years in the past, and then we will look at the 5 years in the future. That's a called the retrospective cohort study design. It means if the study has been started in the 2000, and we will go to look the result till to the 2020 2030, then we will go 5 years back, the those exposure which has been started from the 2020, and then we will go to see in the 2020 30. Okay, so this is called the retrospective study design. Now, the dimension of the quantity study design, it will be conducted in the two setting. The first setting is called the naturalistic setting. In the natural setting, you can conduct the descriptive study design, you can conduct the analytical study design. Okay, and the second study design in the laboratory. In the laboratory, if you conduct the research study design, it is mostly the randomized control trial, or you can say the true experimental design, or you can conduct the quasi experimental study design. Those study design in which the intervention or the drugs trial or any surgical procedure or any pathological procedure has been involved in the control environment, that's a called the laboratory. This is a conduct in the laboratory where it is the control environment is present. If any study which is conduct in the control environment, that's a called the laboratory based study design. So if we divide the study design, if you the experimental study design, it has the three different study design. The one is the exploratory, the second one is the descriptive, and that the third one is exploratory study design. In the exploratory study design is the mostly is conduct in the qualitative study design, in which we use we have the very less knowledge about the phenomena, how the phenomena is working. So we use the unstructured data collection method in the exploratory study design, which is mostly used in the qualitative study design, and the hypotheses are not very applicable in that study design. And the second one is descriptive study design. And the descriptive study design is mostly you uh, collect the information and organize and arrange the data, and then you will go to uh, draw the meaningful result by the collected information in and then you describe the result in the number, in the proportion, and in the percentage. This is called the descriptive study design, and it is used to describe the categories and examine the relationship between the phenomena or which is are related in the variables. You will go to see the relationship between the variables and the phenomena, and it is mostly used in the descriptive study design. And the third one is the exploratory study design. In the exploratory study design, you are mostly go to explain the causal relationship, the relationship between the cause and outcome, and with the effects, the more structured than the previous two types. And the exploratory study design is mostly used in an article study design, and it is mostly used in the experimental study design as well, because the hypotheses are very applicable in the analytical study design, and the control and manipulation is mostly used, or is very applicable in the exploratory study design. The main purpose is to establish the causality. And we will go to learn in the more detail about the true experimental study design. The other name of the true experimental study design is called the randomized controlled trial, and which is look out the relationship between the cause and effects. The main purpose of the it is to establish the causality, means the this specific cause of any disease will goes to proceed for the effects. Okay, the cause must precede an effects in the time, like the temporality between the cause and effects. And it is show the empirical relationship between the cause and effects, like the tobacco, the smoking will goes to cause the lung cancer, and then the smokeless tobacco will goes to cause proceed towards the cause of the oral cancer, and then the alcohol will goes to cause the liver cancer. So these are the causal relationship of the different cause, and will goes to show the different type of the effects, which is particularly particularly affected or attached with the particular type of the cause. The relationship the relationship cannot be explained by the an influence of the third variable. The third variable is called the confounder. The confounder is always the third variable, which is distort the causal relationship. So in the true experimental study design, and the in the randomized control trial, the researcher must control the third variable, which is called the confounder. So in the experimental study design, we will go to learn the different characteristic of the true experimental study design. In the true experimental study design, you know very well, we in the experimental study design, we always use the intervention. We always use the any activity, or we use the any drug trial. So in this study design, we will go for the true experimental design, we will go to use the three methodologies. These are the some characteristic which should we must be used in the before to conduct the experimental study design. The first one is the manipulation. Intervention or treatment are doing the something to at least some of the participant. Okay, the manipulation you can conduct if you the in the initial stage of the true experimental study design, you should allocate or randomize the participant in the two groups randomly. The 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 one group which is called the experimental group, and the second one is called the control group. The experimental group are the those group which is randomly selected, on which the new treatment, new drugs, or new intervention has been applicable. And the second one, the control group, in which you will goes to use the old method, or the old surgical procedure, or old intervention or treatment, or the old drug you are going to be using, or the another way on in the comparison of the experimental group, you are going to use the placebo. Okay, how the in the control you will go, if you conduct the study, in which you will go to use the pre-testing and post-testing. And the pre-test and post-test, you will go to use the purity test. And the second one is the experimental group and the control group. As I told you earlier, that the experimental group is those group in the experimental study design in which you are going to use the new treatment, new surgical procedure, new intervention, and the new drugs. And the control group is those group on which you are going to use the old treatment, the old intervention, and the old surgical procedure, and or you are giving the placebo. So for this, for the control group, you are going to use the O for the observation. And the third one is the randomization. The randomization is also block the selection biasness and the systematic biasness. The random selection is always the limited the biasness in the true experimental study design. You will go to select if you conduct the study on the 20 patient which is are the admitted in the high dependency area. Definitely the 20 patient, when you divide in the treatment and control group, you will go to select the randomly, and then the randomly you divide into the 10 experimental group and 10 in the control group. Is to by the randomly assignment you can avoid the systematic biasness. Okay, and it is symbol with the R. Now you can see in this true experimental design, which is the very famous, it is called the Solomon 4 group design. In 4 Solomon group design, you can see in the post-test group, in the pre-test and post-test control group design, they are randomly select and observation 1, and X is for the intervention and O2 for the second observational group. This is the experimental group. And the control group, they in C, in the control group, they have the randomly selected patient and the observation 1, and the X is deleted from here because in the control group they have no use of the intervention, and then they use the O observational group. Okay, as here O is observational, X for the intervention, and R for the randomization. Now in the design, in the post test, what they have done in the post test, they have only control group design, in which they in the experimental group they use the randomize, and then they have in the experimental group they randomly selected group, and the randomly selected group they use the treatment, new treatment, and the observation 1. In the control group, they use the randomly selected people on which they have the no intervention, but they have used the observation number 1, which is in the control group. Okay, so this is the diagrammatic structure of the Solomon 4 group design. Now see here in the Solomon 4 group design, in the they have the test. This is the pre-test and treatment group, and post-test and the pre-result and the post-result. In the first group, you see in the randomly selected of the pre-test, they have used observational group. On this observational group, on the experimental group, they use the treatment, and then the on the post-test and the post-test group, they when they conduct after the using of the intervention of from the pre-test and post-test, the result from the pre-test before to implement the intervention, the result is 3. When they use the experiment and after they conduct the post test, after the post test, the post result will come up with the 10. Now, in the group number 2, when they randomly selected on the control group, they they use the they conduct the pretest of the that group of the control group, but they didn't use the treatment or the any activity, and then they conduct the post test. The result will come pre-test of the pre-test, and the post test is like the similar, and 4 and 5. Now the third group, the randomly selected, they didn't conduct the pre-test of that group, but they use the treatment group. On the treatment, they use the treatment and they conduct the post-test. And the in the pre-test they have the nil because they didn't conduct the pre-test of that group. So the result was come up with the 9. Now in the fourth group, on the control group, they didn't conduct the pre-test and they didn't use the treatment on that group, but they conduct the post test. After the post test, the result has been come up with the 3. Now we can say in the treatment group, when they use the pretest, they conduct the pretest of the knowledge or the something, and they use the treatment, or the activity, and then they after the treatment they conduct the post test. Then the result will come up of the post test is quite much is higher as compare of the control group in which the no treatment or no activity has been used. So it is shows that the before to in the experimental group, when they conduct the pretest, the result was quite much is lower. When they use the treatment of the activity, they gave the education or they use the some certain of the community trial or the education or the any treatment, then the result of the treatment in the post is come up quite much higher as compare of the control group. Okay, now in the experimental study design, you can repeatedly measure the design, you can repeatedly use it, and the second one, you can use the crossover design. In the crossover design, what they will do, let me give the example. If you select the 20 patient randomly, and to the 10 patient you are give the medications of the old drug of the new drugs, which is called the NIMS, and the second group you give the old drugs or the poniston, and then you will see the pain relief in the certain time period. Definitely, the NIMS uh, decrease the swelling and the relieve the pain is within the suppose in the 2 to 3 minutes, and then the poniston relieve the pain in the 15 minute and the swelling in the within a half or 6 hours. So it means the NIMS with anti-inflammatory effects and the pain relieving effects is quite much is higher, is quite much good as compare of the poniston. Then what you will do, the crossover after the 1 week, after the 3 days of the half life washout period, then you will washout period give the both the treatment group and the control group. Then you cross over the to the control group, you will give the names, and to the experimental group you will give the old drugs poniston group. Then you will again see the effects, then again they see the effects of the names in the control group will become up it is decrease the pain within the 3 minutes and the swelling within the 2 hour or in the 4 hours. And the same one in the experimental group, the pain by the poniston has been decreased in the 10 minutes and the swelling is come up decrease in the 8 hours suppose. So definitely it is has been proved by the crossing over that the names is quite much is better as compare of the old drugs of the poniston. So, in the clinical trial, the testing clinical treatment and the multiple geographical setting, you can conduct this clinical trial in the multiple geographical setting as well. And the clinical trial, you can conduct the study in the control environment of the laboratory or the clinical setting. Okay, and the second one, you can conduct the multiple geographical setting such as the community trial. In the community trial, you can conduct the study in a multiple geographical setting. And the large heterogeneous samples, in the heterogeneous sample means the samples are quite much different in the ethnicity, in the age group, in the geographical area, according to the time, place, and person, it should be different. And double blinded experiment. In the blinding is a terms which is used in the experimental study design. It has a three blinding: the first blind, second blind, and third blind. The first blind is blinding which is used on the participant, means the treatment group and the control group, they don't know which type of the drugs are administration are given to them. Okay, and the double blinding, then the drug administrator or the data collector, they don't know the which group we are giving the new treatment and which group we are giving the old treatment. And the triple blinding, in which the the funding agencies and the researcher don't know to which group is giving the new drugs and which group they are giving the old drug. Even a co-PI and then the funding agency don't know about this experimental study design, right? So, what is the advantages of the true experimental study design? The experimental study design is the test the cause and effect of the relationship. It's give the true relationship between the cause and effects because it is proved the hypothesis after the clinical trial. It's a more confidence result because it is conducted in the experimental way, so it is give the more confidence result. Great chance for the collaborations. So disadvantages of the true experimental design means many factors can be controlled, just like the external factors, and the internal factor must be controlled, just like the confounding. The confounding factor must be controlled, and then the ecological factor must be controlled. The environmental factor must be controlled. Many ethical considerations will be arise during the experimental study design. The first one is why we are giving the new treatment to the experimental group and why we are giving the old treatment to the control group. So this is a ethical issue consideration will be arise in the experimental study design. But we see the risk benefit ratio. If the benefit is quite much is higher than the minimum risk, then we will go proceed for the surgical for the experimental study design for the research project. And the placebo effect. Placebo effect is the Hawthorne effect. When Hawthorne effect is says it was in a factory, the USA, the Hawthorne effect. It was a study was conducted. They were in this study they were observed that if we give the light brightness light more lighting as the at the working area in the night time, or the nursing station at the night time, it will keep awake to the nurses, or it will keep the awake the worker in the night time by the due to the bright lighting on their working area or on their nursing station. But actually the workers or the employees or the nurses, they were working not due to the lighting, but the supervisor, which were he was watching to them and supervising their work in the by the day, by the frequently visiting to check the to supervise or observe their duty responsibility. So that's why they were not due to the light they were working, but they are actually with the Hawthorne effect, the presence of the supervisor. They were remaining awake, and they were remaining engaged themselves in the working. So feasibility in terms of the time and cost, it's it is a very costly, and true experimental design is a very costly. It is a very time consuming. So we will stop our today lecture till to the true experimental study design, and the next session we will go to conduct to read or to study about the quasi experimental study design, and then we will go to study about the observational study design, in which we study the descriptive study design, different type of the descriptive study design, and different type of the analytical study design. Thank you so much. I hope from the today lecture it is clear your concept about the true experimental design and the research study. What is the research study design? Now we summarize what is the research design. The research design is the blueprint of the research project. It is the overall structural plan that how the researcher will goes to conduct the research study in coherence way, in a systematic way. Okay, the research study design it as the divided into two categories. The one is called the observational study design, and the second one is called the experimental study design. The observational study design are the those study design which is conduct the in the natural setting without using any intervention, activity, or the drugs trial. And the second type of the research design is called the experimental study design. And the experimental study design are the those study design in which we prove our hypothesis, and we see the relationship between the cause and an effect through using the any intervention, any activity, or only any drug trial. Okay, thank you so much. I hope you have learned a lot from the today's session, and I request you all to watch my video lecture very properly of the nursing research. It will enhance your knowledge in the nursing research course. And the last, I request you press the bell button. By pressing the bell button, you will get my new lecture as soon as I upload on my YouTube channel. Yeah, you can see on the online. Okay, thank you so much.